Hello everybody, welcome to our CakeFu Master Series. I am Amelia Carbine, your host, and I wanted to welcome all of you guys that are here listening. I know that today is going to be a really great training. We have a really fun guest today, and he's one of the greats, one of the original. I don't if you could say pioneers of the fondant, really getting into the fondant and teaching, that kind of stuff. So he's really talented, really good, really just he's brought a lot to the industry, and I'm really excited to introduce him. So welcome, Gary.
Thank you so much. That's a nice introduction.
Oh well, you have earned that introduction. Yeah, so let's start off a little bit, Gary, and talk about you a little bit. I know that people that are new to the industry, may not have heard of you, and what you have brought to the industry. So let's talk about you, how you got started, what you have accomplished throughout, your cake career, and your interests, things like that. So,
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Goodness me. Well, I got started in cake decorating in a very peculiar way because my job at the time was in publishing, and I was very fortunate to work for a company called Merehurst, who in their day were probably the biggest publisher of cake decorating books in the world. And that's how I got into cake decorating, because I had to at one point bring a couple of authors and launch the company in America. So I was bringing over Nick Lodge and Cynthia Venn and a couple of other people, and we had a stand at the ISIS show, and we actually, I think actually that was the second show. The first show we went to was Tulsa, Oklahoma. Then we went to Atlanta and launched the company in Atlanta, and it was absolutely amazing. And I got involved in that whole cake decorating world and thought that everyone was completely balmy, and really liked all the stuff that everyone was doing, although obviously at that time in America it was predominantly buttercream work. Mm-hmm. In England it was mainly fondant. And I quite enjoyed all of it, probably because when I was young I used to make models out of plasticine, modelling clay and stuff like that. And I actually did get a job offer when I was at school to go and work at pottery. So I think I had something with my hands that I needed to be creative and do something, but I was never quite sure what it was. So this suddenly was there, this sugar stuff that you could do all sorts of amazing things with. And that's how I got into cake decorating, was that I felt I needed to know a little bit about cake decorating in order to be professional at the cake show, to talk about various aspects of cake decorating. And I was very lucky that various people, including Nick, gave me lessons on how to make sugar flowers, how to do piping, how to do modelling, and all sorts of things like that. And I just got really taken by it, and suddenly this whole world of sugarcraft came into my life, which was fantastic. But I didn't particularly like what was going on at the time, because everything was very pale, pastel, little tiny miniature flowers. I mean, it was all beautiful, and lots of royal icing work, which was extraordinary. Mm-hmm. But it really didn't appeal to me. So I started playing around and came up with all sorts of new things that I started creating. One of which was adapting sort of fabric type things into sugar. And I started doing drapes and bows and hangings and tails and various flowers and all sorts of things. I mean, this was in the early 90s, so it's a long time ago. And that's really how it first happened. And I started demonstrating, I started teaching. In fact, my first demonstration was in America. It wasn't in England. And I've always loved America. I've always loved the Americans, because they were the first to take me in. They were the first to really like what I was doing. Certainly here in the UK at the time, because I used lots of bold colours. I did things which nobody had seen before. It was considered a bit odd, a bit strange. I think I was considered a bit of a pariah. And but the Americans loved it, so I used to teach a lot in the States, and sort of things just progressed from there, really. I sort of got involved in all sorts of different things. brought out a book, got involved in exhibitions, and continued teaching. But I've always had a bit of a problem between balancing my job in publishing, book publishing, and cake decorating. That's always been a thing that's oscillated up and down. I sort of shift between the two, which is probably not a good idea, because, you know, one kind of lacks a little bit of focus. Unlike some people who stick to cake decorating, I've sort of moved between the different worlds of publishing, writing, and so, as I still do. But one thing I do like currently is teaching. I absolutely adore teaching. I don't make as many cakes as I used to. I used to make wedding cakes in London for a long period of time, but I stopped doing that quite a long time ago. And I just tend now to be, I think it's really nice. I can be creative. I can do things that I want to do rather than what people want me to do. And also I can experiment a little bit more. And I just love teaching. And there's a whole new flow of people coming into the industry who know very little or want to learn more. And so it's great teaching things to people right from the beginning. So that's a short, quick, I hope, analysis of where I am.
Perfect. That's perfect. Well, you know, and you know, like you said, you were there at the start, you know, and to bring so much, and I like how you said that, you know, the first place you taught was in the States. The first, you know, that we kind of just adopted you. So I love that.
Well, I made lots of really lovely friends. Most of them still there. You know, some of them are big names in the industry now. Some of them sadly aren't around anymore. I was telling you the other day about a fantastic lady I met called Cecile Bellefleur-Burbridge, who I just absolutely adore. And she was one of the doyens of American cake decorating. I presume it's sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, I'm not sure. But I have her book, and her work was fantastic. Her piping skills were absolutely extraordinary. So I've been very privileged to meet lots of really fascinating people. Another one who's no longer around is Rosemary Watson, Rosemary had a business, Sugar Bouquets. She was absolutely fantastic. Her work was absolutely amazing. Her products were fantastic. So I've been very lucky to know lots of different people, including people today like Nick Lodge, I'm still friends with, Colette Peters, and Ron Ben Israel. All these kind of people I used to know very well when I used to visit ICES all the time, or each year. But I haven't been for a long time.
I find it interesting that you mentioned Colette Peters, because the first book that I ever purchased was a book by Colette Peters, and I've seen she does these little fabric roses in this book that I purchased, and they are so similar to the ones that you make, and I just wondered, there must be some kind of a connection between you two. You guys have probably, you know, worked together or shared information with each other or something, because that's in one of her books as well.
Well, of course, I taught all of this stuff. I mean, the whole concept of the fabric rose I invented or created from seeing real roses made out of ribbon. So I was demonstrating that at the shows in the early 90s, mid-90s, things like that. And so all of those different things have permeated down, because once you start teaching people use it in their books, they use it in their classes, and then other people copy it to the extent that people then forget who actually created it at the beginning, which was me.
Of course,
so you know, all these ideas, you know, you create. What I really am so pleased about is the fact that other people have then taken the idea and created new things, which is fantastic. There seems to be a big renaissance in sort of fabric effects. I mean, as I said, I created this and pioneered it in the early 90s, but I mean, I went to the NEC show about a week ago at Birmingham. It's the big cake show in the UK, and I was staggered at the number of cakes, the percentage of cakes, the wedding cake section, that had fabric effects of one description or another on it, and that is kind of like really flattering for me, because when I started entering competitions in the mid-90s, they wouldn't judge me because, what is this? What is this fabric effect? They had no criteria for judging because it wasn't in the judging criteria at the time. But now, of course, it is, and it's very flattering. and really wonderful
wonderful
to see it so widespread everywhere, which is really cool. But I do think that the Americans are doing more creative and wonderful things. Carrie Vincent did some fantastic stuff in some of her books a couple of years ago. Colette obviously does some really things. Ron does amazing things. And there's new people coming in who are also doing really fantastic stuff, recreating fabric out of sugar as well. So it's clearly something that everyone's really getting involved in. And you've just done a little tutorial on another aspect, which I think is absolutely really wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it is such a huge thing right now, and so I mean, it's like coming back, you know, to what, you know, you started lots of years ago. You know, it's just so huge now. So, and okay, I wanted to talk about your writing and your love for the 20s. In fact, we have some pictures here that I wanted to share. Let's see, right here. This is a book that you've been working on.
Is this the Dolly Sisters?
Yes, the Dolly Sisters. If you, down towards the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see. If you click on that little tab, it will bring those up for you. You know, so you can see them.
Ah, how do I? Oh, I see. I can get back. I've got it up on my screen. The Dolly Sisters was a book that came out a bit in hardback about 5 years ago and did really well. And I've actually reissued it as a paperback. So that cover is the new paperback cover. It's also available as an ebook, obviously. But I've been interested in the 1920s for a long, long time, and I've got a website called the Jazz Age Club. I've got plans to do a lot more books on the 1920s, and I'm actually working on 2 books at the moment that are in relation to British silent cinema, which is really amazing, and it includes information about Alfred Hitchcock, because he started off directing in early British silent films, so I'm doing that. The Dolly Sisters are fascinating. They were Hungarian, of Hungarian extract, but they were American. And a lot of people might be listening to this who might have watched recently the Selfridge series on television, the series about Gordon Selfridge. There's going to be a documentary on, I can't remember what your, is it PBS or something?
PBS, yeah, that's
right. There's going to be a documentary on Gordon Selfridge fairly soon, and I'm interviewed very slightly in that about the Dolly Sisters because one of them had a long-standing affair with Gordon Selfridge. So you know, they're going to continue being in the news, and they're still often in features in newspapers and stuff. And if the TV series continues, there may, not in the next season, but possibly in the 3rd season, they even might appear in it. So that's going to be rather extraordinary. So I love the 1920s. I got involved in it when I was very young, primarily because the other drawing that you've got on here is a drawing by a designer called Dolly Tree. That's what started it all off, and she was a British designer, costume designer. And this design I own, which is, I think, absolutely fantastic. And it's for, we're not sure what it was for, but it may well have been something in Paris in the late 20s. But one of the things about this that's affected me so much is that she was called the two-colour lady, and she used to design things for the stage in sort of light and dark shades, because that was what used to show up on the stage. And this you can see the light and the dark blue and the shade of silver and a little bit of lilac. And I use quite a lot, or used these concepts in my work right from an early stage. So I used to do this contrast of light and dark, which is really important to me in flowers, in hangings, tails, bows, all sorts of things. So actually, oddly, it's that inspired me, you know, whenever it was in the early 90s, to use that concept of double-sided or contrasting light and dark colours to highlight some of the things I was making for cake decorating.
I can see that in the inspiration that you use for your cake decorating, because you know, the 20s is such a glamorous time. And I can see the translation in the cakes that you do. And we're going to get to some of your cakes here in just a second. And
well, you can see there is one previously of black and green. which
Yes.
that is quite significant because there is a cake. I mean, I've had
That
this
uses that
image
black
for a
and
long
green.
time. The one of the lady in orange and black is just staggering. But look at the detail on it of the frills in black and white. I mean, as soon as, I've had this design for quite a while.
You know,
But
and
as soon as I
frills.
saw that, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. The frills are a very popular thing in cake decorating right now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it seems like we're, you know, all going back to that time, that era of you know, everything fabric, everything ruffled.
As soon as I saw that design, it just said cake.
I could see that as a cake. That would be really very cool.
But you know, all these things, I take the essence of it and then do something with it. But you know, I don't replicate a cake looking like that glamorous lady. It's just taking the idea of the colours or the shape or the fabric effects or whatever, and use it in a particular way in some of the things that I create.
All right. And some more of the styles, and you know, it does look like, you know, these styles are all coming back now.
Well,
and showing up in cake.
Yeah, the idea of couture. Many years ago, I almost got a collection together for Virgin weddings. They started this company. Virgin started this company in London called Virgin Weddings, and I was going to do a collection which was going to be called Couture Cakes. And the whole concept was that you took wedding dresses and you actually used the detail to match the cake, and it was going to be done with Virgin because Virgin, you know, were offering wedding dresses, and they wanted to offer cakes that matched it all. So it never happened, sadly, which was cancelled. But this is a really amazing. I've got loads of these of 20s fashions, and 20s fashions. Obviously very much in vogue because of the artist and because of the Great Gatsby, and there's loads more things coming, but the detail on some of these is extraordinary, and I love utilizing some of these ideas on the cakes. Significantly, you've got the thing about these books, leads into the books. Not the one in the middle. The Artful Ribbon is a modern book, but the other two on either side are facsimile reprints of some old books that were originally published in the 1920s, and the vogue for ribbon decorations, whether it was for couture or whether it's for hats, millinery, or whether it was for decorations or whatever, was at its height in the 1920s. So these books I've had for donkey's years. And they are just amazing because they give you so many different ideas for flowers and how they were made and constructed. And I've used, again, all of these books for a long period of time, and this is really where I get all my inspiration from, is these various books. Luckily, there's been a resurgence in interest, so there are lots of other new books like this one called The Artful Ribbon. I mean, I've got stacks of them that I've had in my collection for quite a while, and they're all really interesting, and this is where lots of the ideas come from. But obviously it matches the 20s, it matches the dresses. I know that that's very much in vogue at the moment, and that's where a lot of the sort of different ideas come from.
Yes, which leads us into the fact that you have a craftsy class, and the subject of your craftsy class is actually the fondant flowers. So
yeah, the class is called rolled fondant flowers, but actually it is fabric effect flowers.
Yes, fabric.
And you know, I think that's what I need to stress is the class is predominantly about how to create some of the more simpler flowers. It's not the more, there are quite a lot of more advanced flowers, but I've tried to introduce into the class the very simple things like all the different roses, the rosettes, the petal flowers, and also introduce sort of ideas of texturing. And what's really important is the idea of the double-sided paste. As you can see on the green cake, if you remember what we were looking at earlier, there was that there was a photograph of a lady in a Parisian Review in black and green. You know, that kind of thing matches this particular cake. So the whole theme is done in this light and dark concept, so that you know, it just seems to highlight the detail. these leaves on these flowers are all textured with a very fine rolling pin. And I love the colour combination. I thought actually when I did that cake that most people wouldn't like it because it's quite sort of striking. But the reaction I've got to that cake, I've been teaching that actually as a class several times, and it's gone down really, really well. So I'm really happy with it. But I suppose I'm always a bit hesitant because when I first started, and I was doing really bold colours, lots of people didn't like it. So obviously there's been a change in people's minds about colour.
You are just ahead of your time, right? I love this. I think it's gorgeous. In fact, my husband last night, he was looking at the pictures as I was putting these up, and he said, you know, that looks like almost exactly like a cake that you would do. And so I think we have quite similar styles in this.
Fantastic.
And I love the double-sided of it. I think it just such a bold statement, and I love it. And you teach how to do that double-sided in your Craftsy class, then?
Yes, that's in the crafty class. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so all the flowers are in there. I've been putting some of the finished cakes up on the Craftsy platform so that people can see how they can be applied. And I did do some cupcakes as well with some of the flowers, because obviously all the flowers can be used in all sorts of different ways. You can do them in different colours, you can do them in different sizes, some can be small, more delicate, some can be really big. So the class is quite awesome in the sense that it's really difficult trying to get people to think about application, how do you use these, and the fact that they can be small, big, large, you know, whatever. And there's so many different things that you can do with them. And they're just different. They're not botanically correct flowers. They're not like sugar flowers, you know, like doing a botanically correct rose or whatever. These are fantasy flowers. And again, there seems to be a big vogue for that as well at the moment. So that's
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah. Well, and I love how you're showing, like you said, the application of these flowers, because there's so many different ways, like you were saying, to use these fabric-looking flowers. I love these roses, the fabric rose, because it looks so much like fabric, and that's something that a lot of people try to accomplish, but it's not easy to do.
No, it isn't. I'll tell you a big secret about those big roses. I was only able to accomplish those roses when I went to ISIS one year, and a lady was doing a wedding cake with fabric swathes by using a pasta machine. It's the first time I ever saw a pasta machine in operation, and my jaw dropped. And it sort of changed the way I could do things, because I could make much bigger roses, and these are really sort of, you know, big roses with a pasta machine, because you have to be very, very quick. And so printing out a great big sheet of thin paste and then folding it over and then making it into the rose, and I put those on a skewer because it's the best way of making the structure work, although the smaller ones are on little cocktail sticks. But I've done wedding cakes before with just literally sort of 3 of those great big roses, and they look really dramatic. I like this cake because it's a hat, and I love hats. I did actually publish I published a book on hats, millinery, which was fantastic. I didn't write it, someone else wrote it. And again, you know, hats and millinery give me loads of ideas for what to do. In fact, I was actually escorted off the premises of a department store where I used to live in Kingston upon Thames near London, because I went in and they had all these fantastic hats, and I was sketching some of the concepts of the hats on my checkbook, and the manager they called security and removed me from the building.
Oh dear. All right.
But, you know, that's a cool. I like this design a lot, and those roses, they are, if you are going to have a go at them, I would suggest you try the small ones first, because you've got to get the hang of creating those roses, and the bigger ones are quite tricky to do. But of course I've been doing them for 25, 30 years or whatever, so I can do it in a jiffy, but it does take a little bit of skill to get it right.
Yeah, they are just gorgeous. So do you'd say it looks really thin. So do you actually just fold it in half and then wrap it up? Is that?
Yeah, it's a big long sheet of paste, and I get it as thin as I can, and then
Mm-hmm.
I fold it over. But I then, because now you've got the edge is the most important part, the folded edge. But
Uh-huh.
then you have to actually thin where you've actually folded it because it's double-sided, it's double-sized now. So you need to thin it with a rolling pin, and then cut it to shape and then roll it up. But there are different ways of doing it because you can pleat or not. Well, actually, it's like a bit like Shakespeare: to pleat or not to pleat. What should you do? There are
Yeah.
different ways of doing it. You can do it without pleating, or you can do it with pleating. There's different effects that you can create. It's incredibly simple in a way, but I think it's because I've been doing it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that some people find it very hard, and it's not sometimes as simple as you might think. It's all about how you use your hands to roll and pleat. It's been an interesting experience when I do teach to see how people react to it. But I'm very persuasive. I get my own way in the end. And people do get the hang of it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I like how you say that to thin it out after you've folded it over. That's something that one of these little tips and things that are very helpful because the fondant can build up. It's not like making. I mean, you get your inspiration from these ribbon books, which is wonderful. But there are a few things that you do need to do to it. You can't follow the exact instructions,
No,
is what I guess
no,
what I'm trying to
no.
say
I mean,
of an actual ribbon book. Thinning out the spaces that are the places where it's going to be, gathered and that kind of a thing. And I think that's a pretty crucial part of making these work and look actual fabric
yeah.
like.
I mean, when I first started doing these, of course, you look at books, you look at real fabric roses and stuff like that, but you can't just recreate these flowers in sugar as they were done as ribbon because, for example, you can't stitch. So you've got to actually figure out different ways of doing things which make it look like fabric and make it as effective as possible, but by doing other things. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to adapt what you see in a book or in real life. If you see a real fabric flower and adapt it into sugar, it's a process of really experimentation to get the effect that you actually want.
So, and then do you explain these things in your
Yeah,
craftsy class? And
all of these things should be in the class. I mean, we were quite meticulous in going through all the different ways of making these flowers, and of course the leaves as well, because the leaves are very distinctive. There are lots of different varieties of the leaves. I mean, if you look at the blue cake with the orange blossoms, the double-sided orange blossoms, there's some really interesting leaves on those. Those are quite big flowers. They're quite dramatic, and it's got drapes coming down, and it's a really curious shaped cake. But the flowers are quite pivotal. Of course, one of the things that's really crucial about the flowers is where you place them, because the flowers hide the joins of different things. They're a good way of disguising blemishes in cakes as well. If you've got a fault or whatever, you can quite easily just pop a flower on it. So there's all these little tricks of the trade that you can use. But these blossoms are, again, I've used the double-sided or double-sided paste, but also two distinct colours, light and dark, to give that dramatic effect.
Yeah, and you can see that in this one with the cupcakes. With I'm looking at the top left one with that has the. I mean, it just looks like ribbon. It's really well done. I love that.
Yeah, well, there's lots of different ways of doing the leaves as well. So some of the leaves are double-sided and two light and dark contrast. Some aren't, so you don't always have to do it. So I'm trying to do a variety of different things to show people different ways. Unfortunately, lots of the ideas that I've got we couldn't include in the class because the class would have gone on for 12 hours. You know, there's loads of other, there's a lot of other concepts and ideas that didn't make the class. So
yes. Okay, I know that this one is mostly about the fabric flowers, but I wanted you to talk about this lid. I am just in love with this lid. I want you to explain. Would you explain to us how you do the pleats in that lid?
Well, I tell you what we could do is we could do that as a little class on CakeFu, couldn't we?
We could do that.
Because I've got the photographs for it. It's really easy. It's a card, and it's coated both sides. One side is in the pink, and the other side is, I can't remember. It might be in the white. It might reflect the side design actually. And all it is just pleated with a paintbrush.
With a paintbrush.
Yeah, a very thin paintbrush. And I've made those lines, so I just wanted it to. I just thought it looked really interesting, but you know, getting it, of course, doing it both sides, I had to rest it on foam so that it didn't mark, and it was very, very delicate. In fact, this is now damaged beyond repair. Unfortunately, some of them don't last very long.
Yes.
But no, I like that basket a lot, and that's a really pretty. Sort of gift for all sorts, you know, as a cake for all sorts of different functions or events or whatever, and you can change the flowers inside. I mean, you can put all sorts of different things in there. But yeah, I like that design a lot. But yeah, we can think about doing a little thing on the lid if you like.
That would be wonderful, wonderful. All right, and this one, it shows the fabric flowers up at the top and a vase. You said that you're going to be doing something with vases soon. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier about Cecile Bellefleur-Burbage, this wonderful American lady that I met early on, and I've got a copy of her book. And Cecile actually introduced me to the idea of vases. She used to create these huge, enormous wedding cakes. And she used to make vases. There's a lot of different ways of making vases. She used to make them with powdered sugar with a little bit of water that she used to then leave so that they set in a bowl, and then turn them out and then cover them or pipe with them or whatever. And I just fell in love with that whole concept. So I've been spending a lot of time, well, you know, ever since not when I first started, because I didn't meet Cecile until a couple of years later, but I just fell in love with creating vases. So I do a lot of vases and a lot of top decorations. The difference between America and here is, of course, we are not allowed by law to put wires into a cake. So this is great because it's a ball of paste that I've put into a container. And then I've hollowed it out and then allowed it to set and then put it on a base. And then there's the flowers then have been put on wires and then inserted into the vase. And the vase comes off the cake. So for us, that is a really good thing to do, because also the bride can actually keep the vase. It's a really nice memento. And I really, really like the idea of that. And I do spend a lot of time creating tops, vases, or different tops for cakes. This is just one. There was a second variety to this particular cake, but this has got all the bows and the drapes and the borders. They're all fabric effects on there. Ideas that I was sort of demonstrating and creating in the early 90s. So that design is quite nice. It's also got a painted effect on it, and I think that's ragged. It's a ragging, and that's another thing that I started doing, which was using home decorating painting techniques to apply to cake surfaces. And I do a class on that, which is painting and texturing cake surfaces, which is a bit of an arty-farty class. You don't actually. I teach it. You have little panels that you then decorate. There's about 40 different ways of decorating them. And that's a really great arty class. But this is ragged, and that's a really interesting technique. I'm going to be doing a book on it actually next year. It's one of the projects I've got for next year, is to finally, after many years, doing a book on how to paint cake surfaces, because it's something that lots of people don't know about. I mean, I do loads of demonstrations, and people are just sit there with their jaws open when they see me doing this, which is really interesting. But it is a really nice effect. And again, this has got that effect of light and dark, quite subtle, which I like.
Yeah. I really like this. In fact, I'm going to have to send you, after we're done with our training, I'll have to send you a picture of a cake that I've done. It has these same colors, has a vase on top, same.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Well, I have it on my website. Well, not my website. I am done with my website, but on my Facebook page, I have some pictures of there. I'll send one to you. But it has the vase at the top and flowers in the vase, and it just I saw this and I was like, wow, we have very similar taste.
Well, this actually was a cake I did. This is a new version of a cake I did a long time ago. And actually, I did put, it was a wedding cake, and I actually did put a vase. It was a figure holding up a plinth on which I then put flowers. So it's a new version of something I did years ago. But the flowers, I think we were looking before at the vase itself. Those flowers are really simple little blossoms with centres. The centres are actually pre-formed on wires, and then I've applied 3 little petals that have got a rolled edge. And they just look really cute. They're very simple to do. And it just sort of, I just think it looks really lovely. And they're obviously dusted with pearl dusting powders as well to bring out the sheen. And the centres are in yellow. But yeah, I like those.
Those are really pretty, very pretty. And that one at the bottom is stunning. I really like that one.
Well, this cake was again. It was a new. I did this for the Craftsy class specifically because originally we were thinking of doing a cake as the class, and this was one of the ideas that we were toying around with. And in the end, we didn't do finished cake. We actually just did the flowers. But this shows a really interesting way of utilising the simple rolled roses and the pleated roses and the various leaves. But it's also got vertical pleats on it. It's got something called batwing bows on it, and it's got twisted drapes on it. There's a lot going on this cake, and there's also obviously a huge vase on top with very tiny rolled fabric roses. So the colour is very significant because it's very dramatic. The colours of the flowers are quite deep hues.
This is really pretty. Do you teach the bows and the draping in that?
No, I mean Marsha Wimbeckler has got a class where she's doing draping and frills and folds, I think.
I really love this batwing bow that you have. I love that. I've never heard of the term before, but it's really pretty.
Well, these were lots of ideas on here were on the second book that I was going to do, which I never published. And I was demonstrating how to do both this bow, the batwing bow, and the Maltese bow, and I had a kit with the shapes that people could buy to actually recreate it. There were 3 different sizes. But again, you see, that batwing bow came from a Hollywood costume design that Dolly Tree designed in the 1930s for, I can't remember who it was, it might have been Rosalind Russell, one of the really big film stars of the day. Dolly Tree was the person who designed the blue costume design right at the beginning. She ended up in Hollywood. And I saw this bow, and it was called a batwing bow, and I just loved it. So I just figured out how to create it. And that's the history of that bow, which I invented ages ago. Yeah, it's cute. It's got a very distinctive shape.
Right, and these fabric flowers are very different. They look more like a pleated.
Yeah, these are what I call, well, these were originally called rosettes. Okay. And actually what they are is, it's a long strip of paste that's very thin, that's folded over, like you would do with a rose, but then you pleat it, and then you form it into a circle. It's also, if you don't pleat it, if you just leave it as a long piece that's then actually folded, I call that a skirt. and that could be applied in all sorts of different ways. I've seen loads of people using that concept in different ways on cakes. There's a lot of different applications as a border, or as creating fans. There's all sorts of different ways of using it, but these rosettes are quite cool. This particular rosette has got a little centre. I make quite a lot of my centres on cocktail sticks, wooden toothpicks like cocktail sticks. And these centres are very sort of tiny, and they're left dry hard, and then I assemble the rosette around the centre. So the centres are dark pink, and then the rosette flowers are either, I mean, they can either be singular or they can be double. You can do them, you know, double as well.
Oh,
so
yeah,
these,
that would be fun.
and actually this design was really interesting because I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum. We call it the V&A for short in London. And I went with a very, very close friend of mine called Geraldine Dulce, who's another cake decorator who I admire greatly. And her and I go on little jaunts every now and again. And we went to see the Dior exhibition, which was, we spent 5 hours with sketchbooks. We weren't evicted this time from the V&A. Unlike being evicted from the department store for sketching hats, I wasn't evicted. And we spent 5 hours sketching all these gowns. And this actually was an application. I mean, I'd already created these rosettes ages, years and years ago, but they were on a particular gown that Dior had created, and I just loved it.
It's gorgeous. So these little rosettes in the middle, are they okay? Are they actually little rosettes in the middle? Can you explain those centers?
I can't see because I haven't got my glasses. They were literally well. When you do centers for a flower, you needn't do what they look like. Those were probably just a roll of paste around, just a short roll, and then I just did one center and then did some more little rolls and then attached them with a bit of glue around the central one. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. You don't have to do it like that, but I just wanted a center. And this was what the rosettes, or these flowers, were like on the Dior costume. So I love it.
The center on these are what really are intriguing me. I just love that there's so much detail in the center of that.
Okay. Well, perhaps we could do something on that as well later.
That would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
I do love that. Well, and also, if you're looking at the cake as a whole, I love the painting on the cake. That is. Really
that is not painting.
Oh, that's not painting?
No. That, you see, my friend who I just mentioned, Geraldine Dulce, invented a concept a couple of years ago of patterned paste. And that is an application of her patterned paste ideas. I can't go into it now, Amelia, because it would take me about half an hour to explain to you.
I'm very intrigued. We're going to have to have you back a bunch of times.
She has a book, a little book, which she did a couple of years ago that I think it was revolutionary. And she found the idea from polymer clay work, and she just adapted that whole concept of patterned paste to sugar. And it is really striking. It's really that's just I've done that as there's various ways of doing it, and that's just one particular application. So she is very creative, and she's got a really good website. She teaches. Her work is stunning.
Huh. That's very, very interesting. I'll have to talk to you more about that. All right, and here's another example of a vase, or a vase, as you say, on top.
Oh yes, a vase. Well, this was a sort of Art Deco inspired cake. Again, I like, as you know, I've just mentioned about the 20s. This actually is quite striking because it's actually rag rolled in gold. So it does stand out really, really, really well. And I wanted something quite brash. This is going back to my earlier work, I think. And so the flowers, quite heavy flowers, but these are blossoms, which are taught in the craftsy class, but they're just textured, and they're just one colour each. So I've done 3 different colours. The vase is quite big, and it's got the flowers on top with some swirly bits. Yeah, I was experimenting as well with isomalt at the time, so those little buttons are I don't think I didn't do very well with them, so I'm not going to be using it again. I can't seem to get that right.
Oh, well, there are craftsy classes on that.
Yes, I must look at that actually.
Yes. Some really
Well, it's
good
funny in
ones,
cake
too.
decorating, isn't it? Because there's things that you like. All of us
Uh-huh.
are, I mean, I stick to what I like doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very good at royal icing. I can do royal icing, but I've got very, very sort of weak hands, and I find it really gives me a very bad headache when I pipe,
Mm-hmm.
and I have real
Yeah.
problems piping. So I don't do that much piping anymore, and I stick to things that I like doing, which I think is a good thing. I mean, if you've got a business, I think you've got to stick to what you're good at and what you like doing as much as what you need to do. And things you don't like doing or not very good at, get someone else to do it.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, I've got to talk a bit about these flowers. These are gorgeous.
Well, these flowers are blossoms again with very distinctive centres, but the petals are actually created using Geraldine's patterned paste technique.
Okay.
So that's why you get the striped effect. And actually, the covering of the cake, if you can see those strange
Yeah,
ovals in different
those
colours,
are really cool.
that's patterned paste as well. So
Huh.
I've used some of her ideas of patterning paste in that particular cake, and I've used it to augment my fabric designs. And the leaves are again a completely different type of leaf. That's the other interesting thing. We were talking earlier about how do you adapt real ribbons into sugar. In ribbon work, these look quite fine, but it's really, really hard to get them fine. These particular flowers, these particular leaves on this particular cake, they're quite difficult to do. I can't remember what they're called. I think it's got something, it's like a boat, something like that, a boat leaf or something.
Okay.
But they are very, very tricky to do.
They're very pretty. They're
Well,
very
you see,
pretty.
the other thing about that, the design, is that each of those three tiers are offset, so that
Oh
there's
yeah.
space.
I
Yeah,
see that now.
it's not so obvious now.
Yeah.
That's something also I like doing, is doing odd things so that they're offset, so that you can actually put the flowers in alternating spots on the cake. And as you can
Mm-hmm.
just see around the corner of that cake, there's some more flowers at the front. So
Uh-huh.
that is a very offset, strange-looking cake. And then again, the top is these fabric strands that come out of the top.
I love that. That is really cool. Yes. Oh, awesome cake. I love that one. All right, and here's another hat that how you say you are inspired by hats all the time.
Yeah,
And then
that's very.
this purse. I love the flowers that are on this purse.
That's another. That was actually for a friend who had a dual 70th birthday. So it's two ladies who are 70. So they wanted to have two cakes, but they wanted to have something that was sort of artistically combined. So a hat and a bag
Complimentary.
sort of
Yeah.
like work.
Cute.
The flowers are actually used. I just used some little gem flower cutters because I didn't want to do anything too fancy on that. I wanted to do it quite simple. Yeah, so that's and obviously the hat has got really big fabric flowers on it.
So, okay, I'm sure that people will be asking about these cutters
Mm.
because that's what we do here. So, what cutters were they again? Did you say
There's
gem?
it's a gem, gem, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah,
gem
gem
brand.
cutters.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, there's some of the gem cutters. I can't remember which ones they are, but yeah, they're readily available as far as I know in America as they are in the UK. Knightsbridge PME now own Gem, and they have a warehouse or store in the States, and I'm sure they're available online. Yeah, they are very pretty. Again, I've done them in different colours because I wanted it to
Uh-huh.
look sort of slightly differently. But both cakes are covered in the light blue, which I quite like.
Yes, I like that too. And these flowers, again, these are similar to ones on another cake, but
Yes.
just gorgeous. I love how thin they are and how fabric-like they actually look. And
Yeah, they're
that's
great. They're great fun to do, but as I said, the small ones were just done by hand. The larger are much easier to do. The larger ones are a bit tricky. But again, they were all done with a pasta machine. Great device that is. In fact, my first pasta machine was bought in New York, and I was hanging out with Ron Ben Israel, and I said I must get a pasta machine, and he took me downtown somewhere to buy this pasta machine, which weighed a ton. And of course, because I had to have the motor, and the motor was separate.
Oh, yes.
And I had to actually carry it as hand luggage going back home. And when I came back home with this machine, nobody had even, they all thought I was mad using a pasta machine. Because I don't think, as far as I know, nobody had used a pasta machine to make cakes before or roll out icing. So it was, I think it's quite a revolutionary device, I think, a pasta machine.
It really is. It's very useful, very useful. Okay, now here, this one, I love I love this design, and then you have a cake that you made to go along with this.
Yeah, well, I have a huge collection of costume designs, mostly from the 20s, but some a little later. This one, I just fell in love with when I saw it. It's drawn by someone called Michael Bronze, and it's obviously an ugly sister. And it was for a production in London, probably in the 50s, I think, Cinderella. It was a pantomime. And as soon as I saw this design, I had to buy it because it just said cake. And it's got, it had loads of things on it that are very me. The colours, the bows, the pom-poms, all sorts of things I just absolutely loved. And I loved the lady's face because it's so, in a way, quite grotesque. So I created her as a sculpture piece. And she was used for an exhibition of edible art. My lady I was speaking to you about earlier, called Geraldine, staged quite a few exhibitions of edible art. She was one of the pieces in the exhibition. Fantastic to make. I don't know whether one could say that she's totally faithful to the costume design, but almost.
Yeah, I love this. I love that there's fish in it.
Well, it's totally, I like it as well because it's just totally silly. It's just great. And she is the ugly sister, and she is quite grotesque in a way. But it was then, it was a long time ago, but some very clever magazine called Cake Decoration Monthly put it on the front cover, but they also photographed the back and put it on the back. On the back, front side and back side. Exactly, which I was quite chuffed at, and well, absolutely thrilled to bits because it was very clever. And the back was an advert for Regal Ice, which is one of our brands of sugar paste, or rolled fondant as you call it here. And I thought it was just really clever. Sadly, she no longer exists. She had to go to the great cake decorating tip in the sky. Aww. So she's gone. But I'll have to do something. I'll have to do something new, I think, along these lines because I really enjoyed making her.
It's sad when the cakes, that you make as a display piece, when they have to go, and it's sad to see them go.
Well, the problem is they're so fragile, aren't they? I mean, I usually recycle every couple of years, and when one starts looking tired or losing its colour, because the sunlight, not that we get much sunlight here, but not like you, but sometimes the colour goes or it gets damaged, and you have to get rid of them eventually. It's quite sad. But then it makes way for new things.
All right. And okay, so this is a book that you've had out for a while, but you've republished it. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, this was the book I did in the early 90s called Fabric Effects and Sugar, and it was called Book 1 because I had plans to do about 6, but I never got round to doing the other 5.
Oh, well, come on. We want to see them.
It went out of print very, very, very quickly.
Did it?
And I just forgot about it. But fairly recently, people kept asking me, can we get it? And I was referring them to Amazon, and they said, have you seen how much they are on Amazon? And at one point, they were fetching $300-400 on Amazon.com.
Wow.
And I just thought, oh gosh, that's horrendous. So all I did was fairly recently I formed my own little publishing venture called Edit Publishing, and Edit is spelled E-D-D-I-T-T, so it's a bit of a joke. And I reissued it just as a print-on-demand paperback and as an ebook, basically because people still want it. It is old in the sense that it's as it was. This is the book that I first did, and obviously I've done lots of new things, and I will be doing a lot more books next year that would be more up to date, and with a lot of new ideas. For example, I will be doing a book called Fabric Effect Flowers at some point next year. But I just wanted to reissue this because why not? I mean, people want it. And the sales have been amazing. I bought it out in January, this new, in effect, a new edition, and it's done very well. So for an old book that has got a new lease of life, that's fine. But I want to do some new books. You know, I want to follow through on all the things that I wanted to do but never got around to doing.
I love that. Well, and I'm sure that even though this is an older book, it still has techniques that are current, and I mean, as you can see, the pleating, the fabric, flowers, the bows and everything is all very current. You know, just change up the colors a little bit, and it's all new.
Well, the cake on the cover again, it's got painting techniques on it. That cake has got various painting techniques on it. It's got the concept of double-sided and the different colors. So yeah,
a lot like your craftsy class.
Yes.
Okay, so you can have the book to go along with the actual class.
Yeah.
Wonderful, for reference. All right, and are these pictures from the book as well?
I'm not sure whether this is in the book. It's on my website and everywhere. This was.
These are gorgeous.
Well, this is kind of like a piece of edible art. This is a floral sampler. It's based on something that I saw as a real fabric sampler, and I've just recreated it. So it's got stacks of different types of flowers on it. Some of the flowers are in the craftsy class. There's simple rosettes, there's rolled roses, there are some pleated roses, there's different types of leaves, there's a double rosette, but there are lots of other flowers on here that aren't in the craftsy class, which will be in the book that I'll bring out next year.
Wonderful.
So yeah, I really like this. It's quite nice to be able to do something that's artistic. Do you know what I mean? That isn't cake. I mean, this could be a painting on, not a painting, but it could be hung on a wall in a box.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's quite an interesting concept of edible art, if you like.
Well, anybody that has a shop or a place in their home that they bring people into, having something like this on a wall that has things that you can do, people will be so inspired to see something like that. A lot of times you'll just make a display cake and place it up there, but a framed art piece would be just spectacular. And I had to talk about these flowers in here. I mean, they're gorgeous. I love the ones in the bottom left-hand side. The darkest pink one in the center there. I absolutely love that center. I love the little knotted center and the white one that's next to it with the pleating. These are really, really wonderful. And so I haven't had, I have to be honest, I haven't had a chance to check out your craftsy class yet, but man, I need to get over there and check it out because these are really great. They're wonderful.
Well, I think the thing to remember is that there's hundreds of different things that you can do. Once you master the basic techniques, there's a lot of different flowers. I mean, there's chrysanthemum on the left-hand side. There's at the top. There's that white ruffly kind of thing. I mean, almost like a dahlia or a chrysanthemum. I mean, there are so many different ways of doing it. The flower you mentioned with the center and then the petals around. That's what's called a cabochon rose. That isn't in the craftsy class, but it will be in the book that I'll bring out next year.
Okay, wonderful.
But you know, they're really, really pretty. And if people go onto my website or on Facebook, you'll see there's lots of cakes on there with lots of these flowers, different things on there. I've also just started doing Pinterest.
Yes, Pinterest.
Well, I hadn't realised that a lot of my photographs are already on there. So all I did was basically create my own page and put all the pictures that are already on there in it. So I'll add to that as well. Because
great.
you know, visually, I mean, the web has been great, hasn't it, Amelia? I mean, this is just amazing having a chat with you.
Yes.
But Facebook for me has been extraordinary because I've reconnected with lots of people that I'd lost touch with, cake people, and also it enables you, because it's so visual, you can see all sorts of different things. So Facebook for me is certainly from a cake perspective invaluable, because you know, you can get to see so many different things that people are creating all over the world, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and you've mentioned to me, I think it was yesterday, that you would like to do a tutorial or two for CakeFu. So everybody, watch out for that. That'll be really fun.
Yeah. Well, we can think of things. I mean, we've already thought about that lid. That would be a nice thing to do. But I'm sure there's other things that we can do. This picture here is in the book. These are all the different ideas, or not all, but some of the ideas that I was playing around with right at the beginning. So there's flowers, there's hangings, there's tails, there's leaves, there's all sorts of different things that all were sort of fabric effect type of things. I think that's in the book, but that goes back a long time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hate to cut things short because it's fun to talk to you and fun to see all the amazing things that come out of your brain. And it's very inspiring to see all of these things, and I know that there is a style out there of fabric flowers, and it's a huge thing, and I think that we're limiting ourselves a little bit as far as sticking with the real basics. So, but I mean, learning the basics at least is important to be able to branch out and do something really fun and exciting like this. So I have to mention the giveaway one more time. I know that you guys have been chatting about it throughout the training. So the giveaway is a little bit different this time. I see that a couple of you might be having some issues with it. Once the training is done, go ahead and try again. But if you click on the link down below, it will take you over to another page on Craftsy, where you can actually enter your email and your email address and your name, and that will automatically enter you into the giveaway drawing. And we will keep that open for 24 hours. So tell all of your friends to come on, watch the training, and enter that giveaway, because it is still open, and it will be open for 24 hours. And we will go ahead and pick the winner tomorrow at the same time. And then also, don't forget about the discount. We have a 25% off discount on Gary's class today. And again, that will be available for 24 hours. So hurry and go and take advantage of that discount for Gary's class. And also, Gary, if people want to purchase your book, where do they find your book?
It's very easy. It's on Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk. Those are the best places. You can either get it as an ebook, either Apple or Amazon Kindle, and it's also available in paperback. So it's available in both spheres, both sides of the Atlantic.
That's wonderful. That's what we like to hear. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for coming on.
That's all right.
And thank you all of you guys who were here and participated. I hope you guys enjoy the giveaway and the discount. And we will announce the giveaway tomorrow on our CakeFu Facebook page. And the person who wins, of course, will email you and get you all that information. But we will make an official announcement on Facebook tomorrow. So one quick last thing as well is that if anyone has questions, I don't know whether there are any questions. Yeah, we actually.
But if they can always email me.
So I'm sorry.
Well, they can, if they go onto Facebook and go on
Uh-huh.
Gary Chapman Cakes, they can always post questions there or send me an email. They can get onto my website, which is very easy, garychapmancakes.com. Any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Perfect. I'm sure lots of people are going to have questions about Geraldine's pattern paste. We are going to, I'm very serious about this. We are going to talk about that because that is very cool and I want to know about it.
Well,
So,
I can put you in touch with Geraldine, and she is delightful. She's my partner in crime.
All right, well, so everyone stay tuned. We will make sure that we get a training with Geraldine, or at least a tutorial or something from her. That would be wonderful.
Cool.
So, great. Thank you so much, Gary. And thanks.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks so much. You've been absolutely wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.